Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Connecting the Dots. We're going to be diving into the top tech news stories today and, more importantly, what they mean for all of you. And we've got an interesting mix as always.
Yeah, it's incredible. Sometimes these stories seem, pretty far out there, but then they can end up having a pretty big impact on our lives.
Absolutely. And, speaking of far out there, I actually wanted to start with a story about Bitcoin. I was reading Molly White's piece in Citation Needed, and it looks like the U.S. government, get this, might be creating a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And to make things even more interesting, they might fund it with money seized, well, through civil asset forfeiture.
Civil asset forfeiture, it's definitely a controversial approach. Basically it allows law enforcement to seize assets if they suspect they were, used in criminal activity. And they can do this even if the owner hasn't been charged with a crime. So there's a lot of debate around that. And I think using it to fund a Bitcoin reserve, well, that's definitely going to raise some eyebrows.
I was thinking the same thing. It's kind of ironic, right? Bitcoin was initially seen as this decentralized currency, kind of like this way to work outside of government control, almost a rebellion against those traditional financial systems.
Yeah.
But now we see the U.S. government potentially embracing it, and they might even use this method that some might see as contradicting Bitcoin's original ideals.
Right. And, a lot of the early Bitcoin supporters, they were so wary of the government getting involved. They really believed that it went against, the core principles of cryptocurrency. And so this move, well, it really makes you wonder, could this change how Bitcoin is perceived and used both by governments and individuals?
It really does. I mean, does this move legitimize Bitcoin in a way, or is it maybe potentially compromise its original purpose? Definitely something worth keeping an eye on. But you know what? Let's switch gears for a second and talk about Europe. So there's this noticeable slowdown happening in the startup scene over there. The Financial Times reported that German startups, they raised significantly less funding in 2024 compared to, their peak back in 2021. So what's behind this change?
Well, there are definitely a number of factors at play here, but I think one of the biggest is, global economic slowdown we've been seeing. Investors are definitely more cautious these days, and they're looking for those safer bets. And there's also been this shift in investor sentiment. They're looking more towards those companies that are already profitable, rather than just chasing those companies with, big ideas, but maybe no clear path to making money.
So for the average person, someone who isn't necessarily investing in startups themselves, what does this slowdown mean for them?
A slowdown like this in the startup world, well, it can trickle down to the wider economy. I mean, startups are often these drivers of innovation, they create jobs. So if they're struggling to get funding, it could mean, well, fewer new products and services being developed, and that could mean slower job growth, potentially. And it's something to think about, especially, if you're thinking about working in tech or if you're excited about those new, innovative products and services that startups often bring to the market.
That's a really good point. It's a reminder that these things that happen in the tech world, even if it's, in a specific place like Europe, they can have these ripple effects that, we all might feel. Now, let's talk about another area that's seeing a bit of a cooling off, and that is crypto trading. Cointelegraph reported a huge drop in that daily trading volume. It's down 63% from its peak back in February. And for those of us who don't follow trading volume that closely, can you explain what that means and, why is this drop so significant?
Well, trading volume basically just refers to the total value of cryptocurrency that's exchanged, over a certain period of time. It's a good indicator of, overall market activity and how interested people are in, getting involved. So a sharp drop like this one suggests that, maybe the market is, well, cooling off, at least for a bit.
Does that mean people are, losing interest in crypto overall?
Not necessarily. A lot of analysts are calling this, well, what they call trader exhaustion. So, after periods of intense market volatility, and we definitely saw that in February, traders often take a step back. It's like they're catching their breath, reassessing their strategies, waiting for things to calm down a little. So it doesn't always mean a long-term downturn, but it could suggest that we're entering a phase of what we call consolidation or, a period of slower growth in the crypto world. And, this could affect the value of cryptocurrencies. It could even slow down that wider adoption we've been seeing.
That makes sense. Kind of like with anything anything else. After that burst of activity, got to take a break and recharge. Speaking of recharging, let's move on to something, well, a little more positive, a story that really highlights how tech is, making a positive difference in people's lives. I'm talking about Indonesia's tech giant, GoTo. They own the ride-hailing service, Gojek, and part of that e-commerce platform, Tokopedia. And guess what? They just achieved their first annual profit. The Financial Times was all over this story, raving about their performance. So can you break down their success for us? Like, what's the secret sauce?
Absolutely. So GoTo reported what we call a positive adjusted EBITDA, which means, to put it simply, that they're making money from their core operations. And, that's a huge milestone for any company, but it's especially impressive for a tech company, especially one in a fast-growing market like Indonesia. And what's really interesting is, a lot of their success seems to be tied to their partnership with TikTok.
TikTok. I wouldn't naturally think of a social media platform, when we're talking about e-commerce success.
Yep.
So how did that partnership actually, play a role?
Well, what they've done is they've integrated TikTok directly into their e-commerce platform. So users can now buy products that they see in TikTok videos without ever having to leave the app. So it's really a perfect example of how social media is shaping online shopping habits. And we're seeing this trend all over the world, and GoTo is right there leading the way.
So it's like I'm scrolling through TikTok, I see this awesome new gadget, and bam, I can buy it right then and there. That's amazing.
Exactly. They've created this seamless shopping experience within a social media platform, and it's a model that other businesses are going to be watching very closely. I think it has the potential to really reshape how we buy things online.
Yeah, it really could. Just imagine, our favorite social media apps could actually become our go-to shopping destinations. That would be a huge shift. But speaking of big shifts, let's talk about chips for a second. Those tiny little components that are in pretty much every electronic device we use.
This is one that could impact us all.
For sure. So Reuters published this really interesting profile on Intel's new CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, and his track record is impressive, like really impressive. He's known for turning around these struggling companies. I mean, he brought Cadence Design Systems back from the brink, and then he made some really smart investments in these, key chip companies like Annapurna Labs and Nuvia.
Yeah.
So why is this appointment such a big deal, in the grand scheme of things?
Well, the chip industry, it's basically the foundation of modern technology, right? I mean, everything, your phone, your laptop, even your car, it all relies on these little chips. And Intel is one of the major players in this space. So with Tan at the helm, it could have a ripple effect throughout the whole industry. He's really known for having this strategic vision, this ability to drive innovation.
So what kind of impact could this have on Intel in the long run? And, ultimately, how will it trickle down to the technology that, we all use every single day?
It's tough to say for sure, but, Tan is known for being bold. He's not afraid to shake things up. So he might focus on those emerging technologies, things like AI or 5G, and really push the boundaries of what's possible with chips. And that could mean, well, faster, more powerful, more efficient devices for everyone. Imagine your phone charging in minutes, lasting for days, and being able to do even more than it can now.
That would be game-changing for sure. Sounds like Tan's leadership could be a win-win situation, for both Intel and the people who use their products.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's definitely a story to follow closely. The decisions he makes at Intel, they could really directly impact the technology you use every single day.
Right, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from Bitcoin's unexpected turns to those, well, potential shakeups in the chip industry.
It's really interesting to see how these stories, they might seem unrelated at first, but they're all interconnected in some way. Each one is shaping this ever-evolving tech landscape. And ultimately, they all have an impact on our daily lives.
They really do. It's all about, connecting the dots and seeing how these trends might affect us, whether it's through how we shop or the devices we use, or even, the job market that we'll all be navigating in the future.
Absolutely. And we hope that you'll take a moment to think about which of these stories resonated with you, which one sparked your interest, or maybe even, raised some concerns.
We're always here to help you make sense of this tech world. And if you have any thoughts or questions, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to us.
Don't be shy. Come find us on our website. We're always here to help.
So, we were just talking about chips, and that kind of leads us into this next topic, which is, the brains behind those chips, artificial intelligence, or AI. It's everywhere these days, You hear about it in self-driving cars, healthcare, everything. But I think for a lot of people, it can still feel like a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, I think you're right. AI is one of those things that can sound pretty intimidating, especially when people start throwing around those buzzwords. But at its core, AI is really about building computer systems that can, do things that normally require human intelligence.
So, like, are we teaching computers to think like us?
Well, not exactly think in the way that we do, at least not yet. But AI systems can learn from data. They can spot patterns, make decisions, even solve problems. And those are all things that we usually associate with, human intelligence.
So even if they're not thinking exactly like us, it's still pretty amazing what they can do. But, how does all of this actually impact our daily lives? Like, can you give us some concrete examples of AI in action right now?
Oh, absolutely. You're probably interacting with AI way more than you realize. Think about those personalized recommendations you get on streaming services, like, when Netflix suggests a new show or Spotify creates a playlist for you. Those are powered by AI algorithms that analyze, like, your viewing or listening history, and then suggest content that, they think you'll enjoy.
So that's how they seem to know exactly what I'm in the mood for. What else?
Well, those virtual assistants that everyone's using these days, like Siri or Alexa, they're also powered by AI. They use natural language processing to understand what you're saying and give you, a helpful response. And even something as basic as spam filters in your email inbox, those rely on AI to weed out those unwanted messages and keep your inbox clean.
Wow, so AI is really all around us. It's like having this invisible assistant that's working behind the scenes, making our lives a little bit easier. But I'm curious, where do you see this all going? Like, what's the future of AI?
Oh, the possibilities are pretty much endless. In healthcare, for example, AI is already being used to analyze medical images, like x-rays and scans, helping doctors to diagnose diseases earlier and more accurately. And it's also being used to develop those personalized treatment plans based on, a patient's individual genetic makeup and medical history.
That sounds like it could completely revolutionize how we approach healthcare.
It really could. And in finance, AI is being used to detect fraud and assess credit risk. It can analyze these massive data sets to spot those patterns that might indicate, suspicious activity.
It seems like AI is becoming essential in so many fields. But, one thing that I hear a lot of people worry about is AI taking over jobs. Is that a valid concern?
I think it's understandable why people would worry about that. AI will definitely automate some tasks that are currently being done by humans. But it's important to remember that technology has always led to shifts in the job market. Like, think about the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, some jobs were lost, but many more were created.
So instead of fearing AI, we should be focusing on adapting to the changes and preparing for those new opportunities that it'll create.
Exactly. It's about learning to work alongside AI, figuring out how to use it to our advantage. So, for example, developing skills in data analysis, critical thinking, problem solving, those are all things that will be super valuable in an AI-driven world.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about being replaced, it's about learning how to collaborate. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that's, on everyone's mind these days. Cybersecurity. With all the data that we store online, how is AI being used to keep our information safe?
AI is actually becoming a crucial tool in cybersecurity. It can analyze huge amounts of data, looking for those telltale signs of malicious activity. And it can do it in real time much faster than any human could.
So it's like having a digital security guard patrolling the internet, always on the lookout for those hackers.
That's a great way to put it. And the best part is, these AI systems are constantly learning, evolving, getting better at spotting those threats.
That's definitely reassuring, especially with, all those cyber attacks becoming more sophisticated. Now, let's switch gears again and talk about something a little more fun, something that everyone loves. Smartphones. There's always a new model coming out, and they keep getting faster, sleeker, more powerful. What are some of the trends in smartphone technology that are really exciting you these days?
One of the coolest things I've seen lately is the development of foldable phones. These are phones with flexible screens that, you can fold in half, so you get a bigger screen when you need it, but it still fits in your pocket.
I've seen those. They look pretty futuristic. Do you think they're just a gimmick, or is it something that's going to stick around?
Oh, I definitely think they have the potential to change how we use smartphones. Imagine unfolding your phone and having a tablet-sized screen for, watching videos or working on documents, and then when you're done, you just fold it back up and it fits right in your pocket.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's like having two devices in one. What else is pushing the boundaries in the smartphone world?
Well, the rollout of 5G networks is another game changer. 5G is significantly faster than previous generations of mobile networks, which means you can stream HD videos without buffering, download huge files in seconds, and even play those graphics-intensive games without any lag.
Sounds like 5G will make our phones even more powerful and versatile. But with all these new features and upgrades, it can be tough to know which phone to choose. Any tips for our listeners on how to navigate this ever-changing landscape?
You know, the most important thing is to figure out what you need and what you want in a phone. Like, what do you use your phone for the most? If you're a big gamer, then you'll probably want a phone with a really powerful processor and a high refresh rate display. If you're into photography, then you'll want a phone with a top-notch camera system.
So it's all about finding the phone that fits your lifestyle. Now, we've been talking a lot about hardware, but let's not forget about the software that powers all of these devices. What are some of the exciting developments in operating systems and apps?
One thing that's becoming increasingly important is user privacy and data security. Operating systems and apps are starting to incorporate more robust privacy features, giving users more control over their personal information.
That's definitely a welcome development, especially with all the concerns about data breaches and, all the ways our data is being used.
Absolutely. And we're also seeing a rise in cross-platform compatibility. So that means that apps and services are being designed to work seamlessly across all your devices, whether you're using an Android phone, an iPhone, a Windows PC, or a Mac.
So it's all about creating a more unified experience no matter what device you're using.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget about the cloud. Cloud computing is becoming more and more popular, and it's changing how we store and access data.
The cloud. It seems like everyone's talking about the cloud, but I think a lot of people are still a bit fuzzy on what it actually is. Can you explain it in a way that, even my grandma could understand?
Sure. Cloud computing is basically storing and accessing data and software over the internet instead of on your own device. Think of it like renting space on a remote server instead of, having to buy and maintain your own server.
So instead of having all my files saved on my computer's hard drive, they're stored somewhere out there in this vast network of servers.
Right. And that actually has a lot of advantages. You can access your data from anywhere. You don't have to worry about those hardware upgrades, and it's often more affordable than traditional storage methods.
Sounds pretty convenient. But are there any risks involved with storing all our data in the cloud? Like, what about security?
Security is definitely a valid concern. It's really important to choose a reputable cloud provider that has those strong security measures in place. And you should also take steps to protect your own accounts, like using strong passwords and turning on that two-factor authentication.
So it's a team effort. Both the cloud provider and the user have to play their part in keeping things secure.
Absolutely. Cloud security is a partnership.
Okay, so we've talked about AI, smartphones, cybersecurity, cloud computing. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. The tech world is constantly evolving, and it's important to stay informed about these changes and how they might affect us.
That's exactly why we do Connecting the Dots, to help you make sense of all this and feel empowered to, make those informed decisions about the technology you use. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Tech Talk. And we're back with Connecting the Dots. All right, it's time for, one of my favorite parts of the show, listener questions. We got some really interesting ones today, so let's get right to them.
Yeah, I always look forward to this part. It's a great way to hear what our listeners are thinking about and make sure we're, covering the things that they really care about.
For sure. Okay, so our first question comes from Sarah in Seattle, and she asks, with all these new gadgets and technologies coming out all the time, how can I avoid feeling completely overwhelmed? Like, how do I stay ahead of the curve without getting lost in this sea of tech?
Sarah, that's a question I think we all struggle with. It's so easy to feel like you're constantly playing catch up in the tech world, right?
You're telling me.
Yeah.
The tech world moves so fast it can make your head spin. But the thing is, you don't have to be an expert on everything. The key is to be selective, to focus on the technologies that really align with, your own interests and needs. So think about what you're passionate about, what you do for work, your lifestyle, all that, and then ask yourself, what technologies are going to make a real difference in my life? Once you figure that out, then you can start exploring those areas a little deeper. That's such good advice. It's like finding your own little path through the tech jungle instead of trying to conquer the whole thing. Okay, so our next question comes from John in New York, and he asks, what are some practical steps I can take to protect my online privacy and security? It seems like every day you hear about another data breach, and it's a little scary, to be honest. John, you're definitely not alone in feeling that way. Data security is a huge concern for everyone these days.
you're right to be concerned. But the good news is there are some simple things you can do to protect yourself. First of all, be really careful about what you share online. Avoid posting any sensitive personal information on social media or on those websites that you don't really trust. And second, always, always use strong, unique passwords for all of your online accounts. A password manager can be a lifesaver for that, by the way. And finally, whenever possible, turn on that two-factor authentication. It's just an extra layer of security, so even if someone does get a hold of your password, they still can't get into your account.
Great tips. It's all about being proactive and taking control of your own online security. All right, our last question comes from Maria in Miami, and she wants to know, what are some of the most exciting tech trends to watch out for in the coming years? Maria, you've come to the right place. We love talking about the future of tech.
There's so much happening, it's hard to pick just a few. But one trend that's really got people talking is the metaverse. It's basically this persistent, shared virtual world where people can interact with each other, play games, go to events, even work. It's like a much more immersive and interactive version of the internet.
It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie. So it's like you're actually stepping into a video game, but it's for, like, everyday life.
Yeah, kind of. It's still early days for the metaverse, but I think it has the potential to really change the way we do, well, pretty much everything. Connect with each other, have fun, do business.
Wow, that's pretty wild. What else is on the horizon that we should be looking out for?
Another area that's really exploding is quantum computing. These are incredibly powerful computers that can solve problems that regular computers just can't handle. They could revolutionize fields like medicine, materials science, AI.
It's amazing to think about all the possibilities, but it also makes you realize that we're just at the beginning of this whole technological revolution. Who knows what incredible things we'll see in the next few years?
Absolutely. It's a really exciting time to be following the world of tech.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of technology. From Bitcoin and European startups to AI and the metaverse, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I hope you found this journey insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Technology is this incredibly powerful tool that can enhance our lives in countless ways. By staying informed, embracing those innovations, and, using technology responsibly, I think we can really unlock its full potential.
And we can shape a brighter future together. Thank you for joining us on this exciting adventure.
We are here to help here at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring this amazing world of technology.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.